Hello fellow Titan Quest fans. In this video I'm going to summarize the newest video on YouTube where the Grimlore Games, the Titan Quest 2 developers, are playing the game, and they are being interviewed by these two guys. They are from the German video game magazine GameStar. The guy on the left, he says he's not informed about Titan Quest at all. I gotta admire his confidence to walk into this meeting unprepared. The guy on the right is well prepared. He knows a lot. He's played the game for an hour. Now we are going to take a look at the two developers. So this is the first guy, Florian Jonas, and he's the technical art director of Grimlore Games. And he's responsible for all the monsters, the hero looks, the items, as well as the armor, the weapons, and so on. Quite a lot of work that he has to take care of. And the other guy, Kevin Alexander Hese, he's a game designer. He says he's responsible for bringing the fun to the game. He's also responsible for the masteries, the monster AI, and basically everything that you interact with as the player in the game. And boy, he looks exactly like the type of guy to bring the fun to a game, doesn't he? The original video is over 50 minutes long, and it's in German language. And I am German, so I can translate it pretty well. The video is all over the place. The topics go from this to that in a random order. So I'm going to structure it in this video. And this video is a summary of this 50-minute long video. Most of the topics being talked about in this 50-minute video were already mentioned in the blog posts from the developers. And I have analyzed all the blog posts, so I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm just going to cover everything that is new in this new 50-minute video. So the big three topics of the video are general info about the game, then the items, and the mastery and stat point system. Starting with the general info, with the most important piece of information being that Titan Quest 2 is going into early access this winter. So at the earliest on December or on March next year, we can expect the early access. What is the early access? It's a little version of the game, basically. It's only part of the first act, I guess, and the developers say that there are going to be more than 3 masteries, so that means 4+ masteries, and those are going to be classic masteries that we already know from Titan Quest 1. For example, we have only seen 2 masteries yet, Warfare and Storm, and these two have already been in Titan Quest 1, of course. Basically, you can buy the early access, and it's going to cost, 10-20 euros to play a little version of the game. The next very important piece of information is that Titan Quest 2 is going to be an offline game, so you can play offline. For example, Diablo 4 is monetized up the ass, and you can't even play it offline, can only play it online, and you have to buy seasons and mini subscriptions, DLCs, and for Titan Quest 2 this is not going to be the case. You can play offline all you want, you can play online with friends or anonymous people you don't know, and you can also buy DLCs if you like the game. As in Titan Quest 1, the DLCs include new masteries, new acts, new monsters, new items. This is going to be the same for the upcoming game. And the version you see here is a debug version, and they have control over the times of the day. And the big news is there's going to be 4 different times of the day: dawn, day, dusk, and night. And depending on which time of the day you're on, the setting is going to be different as well. For example, if you are on a graveyard and you are there at night, then it might be crawling with undead. as opposed to when you're there at daytime, you're going to meet a widow and possibly get a quest or something. So the time of the day has an impact on the game itself. The next important thing that the developers talk about are the masteries. And in this example, the masteries Warfare and Storm are used. And there are many different builds that you can make with these masteries. For example, a melee hero, as in this demo, or you could also make a hybrid, or you can make a caster hero and use some skills of warfare masteries, for example the leap slam, to get out of fights, for example. You can think outside the box and make use of skills in many different ways. For example, in Titan Quest 1, you could also use the Warfare Mastery as a caster hero, to only use it for a couple of skills. For example, summon some minions or make some buffs. Yeah, this was a viable option. You can just think outside the box. And not many ARPGs offer this possibility to go really deep. And in this instance, the developer switches to a staff and he's attacking. First the projectiles shoot normally, but then it doesn't work, so there's a bug. And it shows that there are still many bugs and many things to sort out. So the game will need a lot of time to be playable. I think we can expect a lot of good things from the graphics. I mean, look at this, the Great Dam. This dam has been broken and the water looks awesome. I really like the perspective. Yeah, overall it's really well made, gotta say. And I'm a big fan of this realistic approach. It doesn't look too over the top, no bright colors or unrealistic scenery. I really like this approach. The developers also state explicitly that there are not going to be seasons, like in Diablo 4 for example, and for other games of the ARPG genre, it is normal to have seasons, which last a couple of months, and you can buy the seasons to have access to additional items, and you have to buy battle passes additionally. I think it's just a way for the company to make additional money. And I'm very happy that Titan Quest and the Grimlore Games developers are not going to include this practice, and I really don't like this. This part is very interesting. In this fight the player encounters a bunch of skeletons and they have an enemy leader, is what they call them. The big one was casting. Yeah, and the player just died. The battle seems a little bit tougher than the rest. As I have already explained in the blog post analysis, when you die, the entire encounter gets reset. But here, the difference is that you can select the teleport directly to the point where you died. The encounter gets reset and you don't have to walk there and waste a lot of time. You can instantly teleport there. And now the player is killing all of the monsters. Yeah, the skeleton warlock, the wizard, is the equivalent of a monster hero from Titan Quest 1. Okay, the next big topic are items. And the item system is going to change. The rarity types I already explained in earlier videos, but even for common items that don't have any rarity, each item has an inherent stat, which is very new. For example, this dagger, every dagger has a 5% critical hit chance, and every sword, it seems, has a 10% glancing enemy strikes. I have no idea what this means, but it seems every weapon has some sort of inherent stat. The next new piece of information might not have a big impact on the gameplay, but a little bit of an impact on the cosmetics, because you can actually see the health and mana potions that you put on. You can see them on the hero's belt, which is really cool. I have never seen this kind of thing. And speaking of items and item slots, so we have the helmet, the cape, an amulet slot, a shoulder guard slot, a boot slot, body armor, 2 rings, and a sword and a shield, and the 2 potions. And these are a lot of slots, and with all of these item slots you have a lot of room for specialization, because you can go for specific affixes that are very good for your build. For example, if you have a pierce damage build, you will go for affixes that increase your piercing damage. And if all of your affixes are going into that direction, you make a very powerful character. One thing that I am particularly excited about are monster infrequent items. And here the developer found a dagger which is monster infrequent, and Ichian dropped this thing. And as you can see on this dagger, like all daggers, this one also has a 5% critical hit chance, and the monster infrequent stat is listed above it, extra, for increased pierce damage. And then the affixes, piercing of alacrity. Piercing is 5 pierce damage, and of alacrity, I guess, plus 5% increased cast speed and plus 5% increased critical hit chance. I really love these monster infrequent items, because if you rolled affixes that fit your build nicely, then it's a very, very powerful item. And here we have another example of a monster infrequent item. This is also from a GameStar video, a different one. And here we see a staff from an Ichian caster. Venomous Benthic Wand of Insight. And here we see the monster infrequent stat is listed under extra, 11% chance to freeze for 1 second. Sounds awesome. I don't know what 11% ailment chance is supposed to mean, but it's the same system. The affixes Venomous is poison damage, and of Insight makes sense, it's 10 knowledge. Yeah, I already love the new monster infrequents. And in this additional short GameStar video, they also show the first unique item that we ever see in Titan Quest 2. Pretty cool. It's called Raging Bull. It's a 2-handed axe. The damage looks kinda high, the highest I've ever seen in this game. It has some strike damage, pierce damage. FYI, pierce damage ignores the enemy's armor. And attack speed 1 times. Yeah, the next important thing, 4% increased weapon damage per rage stack. And these rage stacks, they are not the same as the overwhelm stacks. This part of the weapon only works with abilities that give your hero rage stacks. Yeah, sounds very specialized in my opinion. Yeah, and the weapon has some other nice stats, 9% increased movement speed, health regen, and the next one, 4 strike armor. I have no idea what these keywords mean. It might be that your armor gets increased as you strike, or that you reduce the enemy's armor by 4 when you strike them. I have no idea. But yeah, and the next significant thing is the value. 959 gold, which is not that much. It seems the gold is a little bit down to earth. And also, I like the text. It's called a flavor text, I think. The axe that once hung above the entrance to the labyrinth in Knossos. It's really funny because this labyrinth was in Act 1 of Titan Quest 1. I think it's a bit of a homage to the first game. Now we are done with items, and now we are coming to masteries and the abilities and the stat point system. First up, we have some abilities here, and it seems like we have a drag and drop system. So you can drop your abilities where you need them. on this side, the dash, that's on the space bar, and the ability right to it is the basic attack. And it seems the system is, so the left click only makes your hero go someplace, and the right click you can put any ability on there, a basic attack or eye charts, whatever. Yeah, and you just drag and drop your abilities into the slots. So the ability system works like this. On the left you have active abilities. On the right you have passive abilities. Per level up you gain 3 points for the active abilities and 2 for the passives. And basically when you hit the plus button, you put capacity points in there. It goes up to 20, and you can fill these capacity points with skill modifiers and put modifiers in depending on what stat points you put in your character. And here you see that they put the skill thermometer on the left from Titan Quest 1, which is awesome, but here it works a little differently. Here they call it Titan Echo, and it has 4 stages, and with each stage you unlock more skills for your masteries, which is pretty awesome. And how do you increase the Titan Echo? This happens by progressing the game. So the demo build that they show here only has a handful of possible abilities, and the one synergy that they showcase here is this. So for this skill, that's the basic attack, they have a skill modifier which says overwhelm gain, and basically is that your first hit is a guaranteed critical hit, and then per hit you collect overwhelm stacks. And what are these overwhelm stacks? You see them in a little indicator over here, and it has a synergy for another ability, the Stomp, because this one deals more damage the higher your overwhelm stack is. So that's a nice little synergy, and it really plays well. I used that thing and the monsters flew all over the screen already. And for the passive skills it works similar, because if you level a certain skill enough, then you get feats, which are basically the same as modifiers. You can modify your passive skills if you level them enough. You can select some modifiers for them, which are called feats for the passive skills. If you guys are fans of Titan Quest 1, you will know the Onslaught skill, which was already in Warfare Mastery, and here it's the same. It's a skill modifier for the basic attack, and here it works kind of the same. Per hit you gain rage, and per rage stack you gain more speed and more damage. It's basically the same as in the first game, only that this is a keyword rage, and if you think back to the unique item, this one synergizes with rage stacks. So that's a good thing. You know that this item works very well with the Onslaught skill. And please don't think that this rage mechanic and the Onslaught is only for melee heroes. Later in the video the developer shows that you can also use it with the staff. It also works. The rage increases the number of projectiles that you shoot with the basic staff attack, which is really awesome, and it looks like you can make a lot of different builds with all of these crazy abilities and these combinations. So last but not least, let's talk about the stats. It's a very interesting system. I explained it a little bit, but now we see what it's all about in full detail, and I can explain it to you briefly. So in the earlier game, Titan Quest 1, and in basically every other ARPG game, you had strength, dexterity and intelligence. Here it's different. It's basically strength equals to might, which is here. Dexterity is agility and knowledge is intelligence. Basically these are other words, but You also get a defensive stat, which is Vigor. I guess you need some points in Vigor for every build, because otherwise you get crit by every enemy, and you also need some HP. So Vigor is a given, and for tanks they have a high stat of Might and Vigor, of course. But also an int character, a caster, which has all the stat points pushed to Knowledge. He needs a little bit of Vigor also, I guess. And you also see these secondary attributes. You don't put points in these. Fitness, Cunning, and Resolve. You don't put points in these. These are your combination of points that you put in, the main stats. These determine your value for the secondary attributes. For example, the Fitness is 113, and this stat is determined by the value you put into Might and Agility. And on the other hand, for some items or for some abilities, you need a minimum requirement for these secondary attributes. For example, needs 100 in Cunning if you want to use a dagger or something. So it's very interesting, and this stat point system is very unheard of in the ARPG genre. And I'm really looking forward to it, because it opens up so much room for build, theory, crafting, and so on, which is exactly my thing. So I'm very happy about this solution. And now I explained everything that was basically new in this video. So my own thoughts are these. What I was missing was the auto pickup feature. You know, that there was gold lying around, you don't have to click it, you just hit your auto pickup button and your character picks everything up. You don't have to tediously click everything. Yeah, maybe they include it in the game later. Maybe this point wasn't prioritized very highly. I don't know, maybe it will come out in a DLC. Either way, Titan Quest 2 needs an auto pickup feature. Another thing that I didn't think was really well made was the monster AI, because in the blog post the developers stated that the monsters each have an own doctrine and these factions fight differently and so on, but I didn't see too much of that. Basically it was the same as any other ARPG, or Titan Quest 1 for that matter, that if you stepped into the monster radius of their aggro radius, they just walked to you and attacked you, and that was it. Yeah, a bit one-dimensional, but I'm optimistic that this Kevin guy will figure out a nice way to include some monster AI. Considering that AI has stepped up its game, and AI is on a very high level, maybe, yeah, you can include some of these newer features. Another thing is that crabs drop weapons and everything. I don't like this. Enemies should just be able to drop items that they themselves carry, and not an animal carrying some armor or weapons or something. Doesn't make sense. I think they will figure it out and delete that. Yeah. And my last thing is relics and charms. These were items that specific monsters dropped, and you could combine them and then attach them to your armor or your weapons to further increase them and make your build stronger. Give yourself resistances, give your weapon the damage chart that you needed for a specific build. Yeah, I'm missing relics and charms. I don't know if they will be included in the game, or maybe possibly in DLCs. I don't know. I really need relics and charms on my MI items to make the perfect builds. Okay guys, now we covered everything, and I have a question for you. Will you buy the early access this winter? I think you should do it if you're a really big fan of Titan Quest, because the developers put the early access there for the hardcore fans to play it and give them feedback. Tell them what you think is good, what you think is missing. They really expect your feedback to improve the game. And I know I will do that, this kind of thing, because I can really relate to the developers. They seem like really good guys. And yeah, I hope I can contribute a little bit to the development of Titan Quest 2. And another question, do you think these changes are good? Do you have something other in mind? So guys, write me your opinion down in the comments. Thanks for watching and see you guys in the next one. Bye.